Bills Mafia. Tonight on the Air Raid Hour, we are setting the Buffalo Bills draft board at wide receiver. Finally talking a little bit of offense after all the defense the last couple of weeks. We have over 15 prospects to get to tonight. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do they fit the Buffalo Bills? And when can we expect them to come off the board? We've got all of that for you coming your way and more. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. This show is brought to you by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. A bunch of people already up in the comments section. Rico G coming in saying, just thinking about the Bills' plans for gaining more players is exciting. This is our favorite time of year. Ralph Wilson Sr. comes in and says, if late to make the pod, does the next pod make their pick a la Minnesota? I don't know. Is there any podcast? Does Joe DeRosa have to start under review a night early if we are late? I don't know. That's my apologies for us being late tonight. I was telling Dave right before we kicked off here that there might be something in my wall, like a roof rat or something. I heard something like pecking at the wall in my studio, so that was no good. I had to go outside and check that out before the show started. And Bills are electric coming in saying Jalen Lane, Jalen Royals, Torrey Horton, Ty Felton, Deontay Thornton, Jalen Lane, who? Well, we're going to be talking about all those guys and more tonight as we break down wide receivers and the Buffalo Bills' specific need at wide receiver. Dave, let's start like we have been the last couple of shows, just with the Buffalo Bills depth chart and where the need is for the Buffalo Bills. At the X receiver position, the Buffalo Bills have Keon Coleman heading into next season. Some may argue it could be Joshua Palmer as our finger quotes X. For the sake of this argument and this depth chart, I put Joshua Palmer and Curtis Samuel as our Z receivers, and our slot receiver is Khalil Shakir. Obviously, these guys move around. They do different things. They rotate on and off the field. But those right now are our core four guys. Same as last season, but Joshua Palmer in for Mac Hollins, Amari Cooper out. And that means there's some competition. Could it be a draft pick? Could it be Jalen Virgil? Could it be Tyrell Shavers? Could it be KJ Hamler? Could it be Laviska Shenault? It's clear the Buffalo Bills are going to have at least a fifth newer receiver outside of those top four that I just named. Could it be someone in-house? Could it be a draft pick? Who knows? What are your thoughts on the current state of the Buffalo Bills depth chart at wide receiver?
Yeah, it's really interesting, the conversation around wide receiver, because I do think that, we've talked about defense the last couple of weeks, and it's been pretty consensus that the Bills need to address defensive line and corner early in the draft. But where you get a little bit of a, sort of more of a debate, I guess, is where and should the Bills take or make a premium pick, or when they should take a wide receiver potentially in this draft. I do think that most people believe the Bills should draft a wide receiver. I don't see very many people saying they shouldn't address the position in the draft. But it's tricky, right? Because without that third round pick and the needs the Bills have at defense, it's kind of a weird spot for this team right now. As far as the current depth chart, it's a good depth chart. They've got a lot of different skill sets. It is a bit of I don't want to call it an island of misfit toys, but it is a little bit of like you have, guys that can do certain things, and collectively maybe the sum of the parts is more than the individuals. And so that's, I think, what the Bills are hoping. We saw when they brought in Amari Cooper at the trade deadline last year, he did make some impactful plays, but the volume really wasn't there probably for what I think fans expected. And so it's kind of back to the drawing board now on what you do at this position. And I think based on the visits that we've seen, it seems like the Bills have a certain type of receiver in mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, right, you could probably say that Joshua Palmer and Curtis Samuel are overpaid. If Joshua Palmer has a big year, he's underpaid. If Curtis Samuel gets healthy, right, and gets right, all of a sudden he's probably paid adequately. But right now, people might be a little sticker shocked with Joshua Palmer's contract. They're definitely probably a little salty about Curtis Samuel's contract. But the Bills it appears pretty darn serious about this. Everybody eats. There is no alpha wide receiver in our room. You have Keon Coleman coming into year 2. Brandon Beane seems pretty high on Joshua Palmer. I think the Bills are hoping they get a bunch better Curtis Samuel in year 2. They paid him for a reason. And then you have Khalil Shakir as your safety blanket. If the Buffalo Bills don't make any changes at the wide receiver room, that's your core 4. It's kind of scary the thought one guy gets hurt, though, because after that, your 5th receiver is probably a special teams competition between Jalen Virgil and Tyrell Shavers. And then can Laviska Shenault show us something as a kick returner to roster a 6th receiver? So if you look at that depth chart, the depth part of it is scary because they lack that true X. And it appears really like the one trait that is missing from this wide receiver room, right? If you're using that sort of analogy, you're trying to build your you're trying to build your wide receiver unit like a basketball team. The one key trait missing is that speed element. And I think the Bills understand this. Fans like to joke that the Bills are always a year too late. Maybe they should have understood this last year when guys like Xavier Worthy were on the board. But look at their pre-draft visits. Torrey Horton, top 30. Arian Smith, top 30. Isaac Tesla, top 30. Keandre Lambert-Smith, top 30 visit. Isaiah Bond, top 30 visit and a workout. There's some things with Isaiah Bond we're going to talk about. He's probably off the Bills draft board now. Deontay Thornton, private workout. Ty Felton, private workout. Jalen Lane, Zoom meeting. Landon Parker, Zoom meeting. What do all these receivers have in common, Dave?
They're fast.
They go zoom. They get vertical. Most of them can play from the boundary and they get down the field, right? So that is the sort of missing element. And that's what we're going to focus on tonight. We're going to have a conversation probably about 15 receivers tonight. And there are going to be some names you're like, why are you not talking about these guys, right? Jack Besh, Xavier Restrepo, even like Jaden Higgins, Trey Harris. As much as I love Trey Harris, like those guys are just not in my show notes tonight. Why? I just don't think they have the requisite speed the Buffalo Bills are looking for. Am I saying some of the receivers we're going to talk about tonight are better than these guys? No, I am not, right? Like if you are combining all their attributes and you're trying to just rank them as pure receivers, some of these guys that we're going to talk about tonight aren't maybe ranked as high as some of these other guys, but they have this element of speed. They can be that prototypical Z receiver. They can threaten from the boundary. Maybe they can develop into a little bit more. One of the key themes we're going to see tonight is with these new rules, allowing for more kick returns this year. And we saw Brandon Codrington literally benched last year in the playoffs because he wasn't position versatile. If there's a guy who can threaten the boundary and provide kick returns to you, that's a pretty valuable asset as a 5th receiver. Hey, whenever we need someone to go stretch the field, you can go out there. We can also use you on every single kick return now that teams are going to be trying to implement more kick returns with these new rules. So to me, special teams, whether it's as a gunner and being able to contribute there or as a returner, is also going to play a big role in the conversation that we talk about tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the key, right? Is to really hit that point, right? Like there are guys that we're not going to talk about tonight just because of the way that the Bills have approached these visits that look, they could surprise us and take a receiver that we don't talk about tonight, which I mean wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but based on what they've done with who they've brought in and based on what the apparent need is in the room, that seems to be the type of guy they're targeting.
All right. Before we get into all of these prospects this evening, a quick word from our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
This episode is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza with 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you are a local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Visit picassospizza.net to place your order today. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, let's get into it now. And the conversation we're going to have tonight, we are going to break into 4 tiers. The first is going to be day 1. Second is going to be day 2. The third is going to be round 4 plus guys, and some guys that we're going to talk about is like maybe some later round guys. And then we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about running backs. Before we get into that, Claude Puy says the Buffalo Bills did talk to Xavier Restrepo at the combine. This is true. They did, right? And if the Buffalo Bills draft one of these guys that we don't talk about tonight or don't fit the mold of what we're speaking of, we will certainly react to that and have reactions to that when we do our live draft coverage. But just for tonight, just for the sake of the fact that I can't be doing show notes on 30 plus receivers, we're going to stick to these speed guys tonight. Not to mention, I just think they talk to a lot of guys at the combine, right? There could be a number of reasons why they talk to them, trying to stack their board, trying to get some information. To me, on the totem pole of reading into pre-draft visits, combine is pretty low on that list. So starting off with day one, like round 1 wide receivers. If you're really looking at it, right? Wide receivers that could be on the board, Luther Burden. I don't know. Like Luther Burden is a guy we could possibly have a conversation on tonight. I did not do show notes on Luther Burden. Emeka Abuga out of Ohio State. Again, another guy that would be pretty tempting at pick 30 because he's a very good wide receiver. But again, I just don't know if he fits the mold for the Buffalo Bills. The one name that I think does mesh with the Buffalo Bills, and I think that at this point there's a low probability he's going to be on the board, is Matthew Golden out of the University of Texas. Yeah. Taking a look at him, 5'11", 191 pounds. He's got arm length of just over 30 inches. He ran a 4.29 40 at the combine with a 1.49 split. So 97th percentile and 93rd percentile there. His physical comp, he's got that Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson body type. He led the team at Texas with 987 receiving yards on 58 catches, 17 yards per reception, 9 receiving touchdowns. His previous 3 seasons at Houston, he was mostly a return guy, and he was kind of wasted as a yak guy. He didn't really become a deep threat and a deep option until he got to Texas. But when you look at Matthew Golden, he is a boundary guy who can also work inside. That 4.29, I don't think he plays that fast, but he certainly is a fast player. He can work all 3 levels of the field with consistency, and he produces at all 3 levels. He made some big time plays in some big time games for the University of Texas. He made some ridiculous catches. He does his best work downfield. And this is despite the fact that he's being held back by Quinn Ewers, who's not a good quarterback. That's a conversation for another day. But an average depth of target, 13.5 yards. He was 13 of 22 on deep balls this year for 438 yards and 4 touchdowns. 4 drops on the year for a 6.5% drop rate. He's also an explosive kick returner, so he can contribute there. His biggest drawbacks, take some plays off when he knows this isn't coming to him, and he's got some focus drops. But this is a traditional Z. To me, he's got that sort of first-round pedigree on film. I know the analytics community does not like him, but I think a lot of that has to do with Quinn Ewers. What are your thoughts on Matthew Golden as a first-round option for the Buffalo Bills and maybe the only first-round option for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, it's really interesting with Golden. I like him a lot. The PFF's rankings on him overall back in February, 24th overall, prospect 22nd now. Dane Berugler in his The Beast guide, which he puts out every year, has Golden as his 15th overall prospect and his number 2 wide receiver. I mean, ran the 4.29 at the combine, which is awesome. Only one of 2 wide receivers that are less than 6 feet tall in the class with over 9.5-inch hands. So hand size looks good. Mainly played outside at Texas, but did play about 35% of his snaps in the slot with Houston in 2023. You mentioned his kick return ability, 28 career kick returns in college, 2 kick return touchdowns in 2023. And so as you open the show talking about what guys can offer, like he can obviously offer you something here. 5th highest yards per reception, 17.0 of all eligible wide receivers with at least 80 targets, draft eligible wide receivers with at least 80 targets. So a lot of the good metrics around Golden. I really like him. I think it would be really, really hard to pass him up if he's there at 30, but I also don't think, as it stands right now today, I don't think he's going to make it to 30, but I would certainly have to have a pretty long think about it if he's there, even with all the.
And if he's again, this is the conversation we have every week. If there's a player that's really tempting to you at 24 and still on the board at 24, give Minnesota Vikings a call, right? Yep. They have the second least amount of draft capital in this draft. Now I know our guy Uber Hansen has floated what a trade offer would look like, 30, a 4th and a 5th, or fourth, a fifth, and a sixth, something like that, like to get up to 24. He had also floated how we could get their third round pick if we want to move into the third round and give up some of our fourth, fifth, sixth round picks. He's floated those trades on social media. I didn't have a chance to jot them down before the show, but there are like sane, legitimate, not over the top offers we could make to Minnesota that are within the realm of possibility to get up to the 24th pick without having to give up any of our second rounders, and to add an additional third round pick with only giving up a chunk of our middle round selection. So these next guys that we're going to talk about, maybe we move up into the third round for if they're there and use our 56 and 62nd pick on defense. Or, maybe we can move up to 24 for a guy like Matthew Golden. Do you think he's worth maybe trading a first, a fourth, and a fifth to get up to 24 and take?
I think he is. I really do. And I say that kind of in a vacuum, my opinion there, because obviously I think the Bills' bigger needs are at defense. I think just on the surface, like he's worth that in a trade. All other things equal, if you're able to keep your second rounders, maybe use both your second rounders on defense, then depending on how the board plays out, that could be pretty interesting. So I do think in a vacuum, it's worth it. Do I think the Bills, with their needs on defense, would do something like that? I don't know that they would do it, but I do like him enough that I would think it's worth it.
And I think Matthew Golden could be a wide receiver one. I think he's one of the few receivers in this draft that could be a wide receiver one. And RJ Melville comes in and says, is there even a point drafting a wide receiver in the fourth or fifth round? This team doesn't need another wide receiver 4. The room is basically Shakir, wide receiver 2, and everyone else is a 4 or 5. I think other than Matthew Golden, if the Buffalo Bills can't get their hands on a guy like Matthew Golden, I think this is exactly what the Buffalo Bills are looking for. I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to look for or want a bona fide wide receiver number 1. I think they like this everybody eats approach. I think unless an opportunity like Matthew Golden presents itself, the Buffalo Bills are going to be in search of a niche receiver who can get vertical on the boundary and contribute on special teams. Like if people have these thoughts that the Buffalo Bills are going to go out and chase some like alpha X receiver, I just don't think that's within the realm of possibility. Now, are there higher ends to this conversation we're going to have today? Yes. I think some of the guys that we're going to talk about next are the higher end of that niche receiver the Buffalo Bills are looking for that could develop into more. Whereas some of the guys we talk about later are at the very low end of those niche receivers and probably make you wince a little bit more than the guys at the upper end here. So now moving on to our second tier here, or our second group of tier 1, these are guys that I think are day 2 picks, would be options for the Bills at 56, at 62, or as I just mentioned in a very roundabout way, trading back up into the third round to come and get after we address 3 needs. These are the 5 guys I have. One of them is probably off the draft board. So before you get to me in the comment section, we will address it when we get to this player. Kyle Williams, Jalen Royals, Isaiah Bond, Torrey Horton, and Ty Felton. Could some of these guys maybe slip to us in the 4th round, or we can do a smaller trade up in the 4th round? I think so. But these are the guys that I think fall into the day 2 range that also fit into this niche that the Buffalo Bills could possibly be looking at. Let's start with Kyle Williams, who I know is a little spoiler alert for our Thursday show that we are going to have pre-recorded, is going to be your guy at wide receiver in this draft. A good physical comp, I think, for Kyle Williams is a Ladd McConkey type. He's 5'10", 190 pounds. He's got 30-inch arms. He ran a 4.40 with a 1.55 split, 62nd percentile vertical jump, only a 35th percentile broad. It's not the most explosive guy in the world, but this guy was 4th in the FBS with 14 touchdowns, 8th with 1,198 receiving yards. He led Washington State with 70 receptions. He's got 4 years of production previous to this season, 3 at UNLV, where he was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year. So he's been doing this since a young age. He's probably the best peer separator in this class. He's versatile. He played 348 snaps out wide this year to 119 in the slot. He is a big play waiting to happen between his deep skills and his yak ability. He's a great ball tracker. He caught 14 of 24 deep targets this season for 454 yards. That's 32 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. Never had more than 5 drops in a season, but he has had 2 seasons with an above 10% drop rate. He was 6.7% this past season. He lacks the frame and the strength for contested catches, but I think he fits the room because I don't think the Buffalo Bills are looking for a go-to guy. He fits the niche of what we want.
Yeah, I mean, I will take a little bit of a pat myself on the back here. I was pretty early on Kyle Williams in this process, and he is certainly caught a lot of people's attention now over the last couple months. You go back to February, PFF only had him as their 152nd overall prospect. As of today, they have him as their 65th overall prospect. So move it up 87 spots in their overall rankings. Dane Brugler has Kyle Williams as his 91st overall prospect as a 3rd round grade on him. Obviously, the knocks on him are going to be just the frame, the overall size, but he did run better at the combine, I think, than probably people were expecting with that 4.4 time. And I think he's underrated in the class, maybe not so much anymore. He was one of Daniel Jeremiah's 12 standouts from Senior Bowl practices. You mentioned the 14 touchdowns in 2024. Yards per reception, yak per reception of 8.4 was the highest of anyone in the class with at least 85 targets. And you mentioned a bunch of the other metrics that I don't need to repeat, but does have a little bit of slot ability as well. Played about a quarter of his snaps in the slot in 2024, created separation throughout the week at Senior Bowl practice, caught the ball well, and put himself to be in the mix to be drafted on day 2. So yes, I mean, I've been high on Kyle Williams for a couple months now into this process and feel like he was undervalued. Now I feel like he's kind of being valued where he should be, right in that sort of round 3 range. So and to spoil it, he's probably, tune into our No Matter What show. He's going to be my guy. That one for receiver.
I've heard a couple of people saying like they wouldn't be shocked if he's this year's Ricky Pearsall and like ends up going the tail end of round 1. I don't think the Bills would be that team, but I don't even know if there's really a wide receiver needy team at the back half of the first round that would really pull the trigger on that. I think maybe the Eagles would be that type of team, but they always just take the clear cut, like sticking out of the board, best player available.
Yes.
There should be a corner and edge rusher for them to go and grab. They're not the team to make those kind of reaches, but Kyle Williams is just impressive. Claude Puy asked if the Buffalo Bills talked to him yet. No, they haven't, but that doesn't mean that they have, and we just don't know about it. That doesn't mean that the Buffalo Bills aren't just trying to keep that one under wraps, right? That's just like maybe the Buffalo Bills are going to all the speed guys because they want to add another, big time contested catch guy, or maybe they're trying to hide Kyle Williams. You never know what Brandon Beane is trying to cook up with the message he's sending with some of these visits. But speaking of visits, I think we got I don't want to say sleeper, but I think we maybe have the highest ceiling of some of the guys that we're going to talk about tonight. And this is a guy who's a Buffalo Bills top 30 visit. That's Jalen Royals out of Utah State. Physical comp, kind of like some Brandon Ayuk to his game, I think, in terms of physicality. If you really want to kick it old school, Pierre Garçon was a physical comparable to Jalen Royals. DJ Moore also kind of fits the mold there. 6 foot, 205, 73-inch wingspan, 30-inch arms. He's got a 4.42 40, so he's got that speed, and a 96 percentile 1.49 10-yard split. So he's quick right out of the gate. So that's something to know about Jalen Royals. In 2023, he was a first-team All Mountain West Conference player. He led the team with 1,080 receiving yards. He had 71 catches. That's 15.2 yards per reception. He ranked second in the FBS that year with a school record 15 receiving touchdowns. Last season, he was pacing well, but then he got hurt. Played in 7 games, was still second team All Mountain West Conference, still led the team with 55 receptions, had 834 yards, again, 15.2 yards per with 6 touchdowns. You look at his deep ball targets. In 2023, he caught 14 of 29 deep balls, which is 20 plus yards in the air for 511 yards, 36.5 yards per catch, and 12 touchdowns, 12 deep ball touchdowns for Jalen Royal in 2023. Back to earth with that injury in 2024, but still pretty consistent. 7 catches on 12 targets for 238 yards at 34 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. There's a couple of websites whose scouting reports will tell you that he struggles vertically, but I think Kyle Krabs of the 33rd team did a great breakdown of why some scouting reports might say that and why it is not really that big of a concern. He played mostly on the left side at Utah State. He played mostly in wide splits, so he would kind of get boxed in by the boundary, which skews his spacing and makes some of his tape really hard to project in the NFL. If you just move him around a little bit and maybe don't put him so close to the boundary, he'll have a little bit more room to operate, and you can tell from his testing numbers that he's a guy who's going to get you vertical. He's a natural space creator. number of scouting reports say he's unguardable versus zone, but he still is, like most prospects, a work in progress versus man-to-man coverage. He's got really high developmental upside, I think, with more reps, especially against press coverage. He's got a basketball background, just like Keon Coleman, and his footwork. It could suggest that he could develop some really efficient releases. He's got room to sort of elevate in traffic, again, using those basketball skills. He's got good ball tracking ability and catch point consistency. He's got the tools to become a complete receiver and a reliable target. He's a yak monster. He's got traditional Z wide receiver traits to get vertical and to lift coverages. So I think Jalen Royal could play a role early and could develop into more. I think he's got one of the bigger ceilings of this draft class.
Yeah, as far as the ceiling is concerned, absolutely agree. I mean, the 15 touchdowns in 2023 were absolutely incredible. Like the practice reports for him throughout the week at the Senior Bowl were just nothing but good things, right? Like, I mean, just were glowing reviews. And to be honest, when I like watched a couple of his games and some of the cut-ups of him, some of the film cut-ups of him, he kind of reminded me of, just like the way he played, he kind of reminded me of Amari Cooper. That's kind of who he reminded me of. And I know that maybe not like that doesn't seem like an obvious comp, but that's the vibe I got from a guy like Jalen Royals, was Amari Cooper, which I think, Amari Cooper, if you go back to when he was drafted, was a very, very highly drafted player. And so, look, that's my comp for him right now. I think he could be a better vertical player potentially than a guy like Amari Cooper. But I think as far as like the ability to cover up the zone, the ability to kind of win on his routes, if he is used properly, like you mentioned, to me, that's the key thing with him. How will he be deployed in your offense could be the difference between how he comes out of this thing. So I'm a fan of Royals. And again, I think that in the right situation, he could flourish.
The next wide receiver comes with a big old asterisk next to his name, and that is Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Just for reference, he turned himself into Frisco Texas PD, for matters related to an outstanding warrant for sexual assault. That is probably why the Buffalo Bills had him in for a top 30 visit. Concerns surrounding that pending legal issue that he has. And also, they had him in for a private
aren't
workout.
Good about that, though. They apparently didn't know that Ogunjobi and
yeah. So I don't know what is going on. So put a big old fat asterisk next to Isaiah Bond, but we're quickly going to talk about him as a football player, and then we will move on. But he's probably off the Buffalo Bills board. My physical comp for him, somewhere in that John Brown, Jordan Addison range, 5'10", 180. Obviously, he's got those size limitations, but a 1.51 10-yard split is in the 80th percentile. A 4.39 40-yard dash is in the 85th percentile. In 2023 at Alabama, he had 48 catches for 668 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last year at Texas, he had 34 catches for 540 yards, 15.9 yards per, and 5 touchdowns. He's tough for his size. He makes some nice contested catches. Explosive athlete. He's got above average skill. It's clear why he was a top recruit. I think he's one of those guys who simply, and he probably won't get it now, but simply needs more targets to reach his potential. He's got that inside-outside versatility. Played 72 on the inside at Texas last year, 245 on the outside, but it was the inverse at Alabama, where he played 202 on the inside and 141 on the boundary. It's not just his world-class speed. I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. He's got the stop-start ability, his ability to control his speed. That just makes you so tough when you have the ability to control that speed. In 2024, and this is a lot to do with Keon Ewers. Keon Ewers sucks. In 2024, he was 2 of 14 on deep targets for 48 yards. In 2023, he was 9 of 18 with Jalen Milroe for 302 yards, 33.4 per catch, and 4 touchdowns. Likely off the Bills board, but that's unfortunate because I think he'd be a nice fit in this room. But I just don't know if the Buffalo Bills would pull the trigger on a guy like him.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. I mean, the speed's there, the suddenness is there. I think his stop-start ability gave me a bit of a Josh Downs vibe. It's kind of, I mean, he's quicker. I think overall his top-end speed is quicker than Josh Downs, but like his ability to kind of move in tight spaces, to me, I really think could have offered the Bills something, and then you throw the speed on top of that. So we'll see if he remains on the Bills board, and I mean, he will get drafted. I have no doubt about that. I don't think he's gonna go undrafted because of this, and we'll just have to see if more information comes out about it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like if he does get drafted, it might be in the later rounds. So who knows what kind of team takes a chance on that. Torrey Horton is the next up, and he's number 2 for me behind Jalen Virgil in terms of like upside, in terms of ceiling. When I look at Torrey Horton, some physical comparisons, I think Marvin Jones Jr. is a good one. DJ Chark. The one I really liked for Torrey Horton was, and again, maybe it's the Colorado State thing, but Michael Gallup, who had a nice little career in Dallas, just came out of retirement to come play for the Commanders. Injuries really derailed his career. But you look at Torrey Horton, he's 6'2.5", 196 pounds, 77-inch wingspan, 30-inch arm length. He ran a 4.41 40 with a 1.53 split. And this is a guy who just had knee surgery mid-season and missed the back half of the season. So this is a guy who ran a 4.41 with a 1.53 split coming off of surgery. So to me, he could even be quicker than this once he has a chance to fully recuperate. He had a 37.5-inch vertical, which was 80th percentile. It's the guy who was a team captain in 2023 and 2024. Like I said, he missed half of the 2024 season with a knee injury. He's a loyal dude. I think 1,000% he could have either gone into the draft last year and been a pretty high pick in a loaded class, because I was pretty high on Torrey Horton last year. He probably would have cracked my top 10. And he could have transferred to a Power 5 team. I'm sure plenty of teams were trying to reach out to him, but he decided to stay at Colorado State. In 2023, he was first team All Mountain West, second team All Conference as a punt returner, as well as receiver. So now we got that special teams, option with Torrey Horton. He was 5th in the FBS in 2023 with 96 receptions. He led the team with over 1,000 yards, 11.8 yards per, 8 touchdowns. He started all 12 games. He had 11 punt returns for 147 yards. That's just over 13 yards and a touchdown. The year prior to 2023, in 2022, first team All Mountain West Conference, honorable mention All Mountain West punt returner, led the team with 71 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 15.9 yards per, 8 receiving touchdowns, started all 12 games, 11 punt returns for 71 yards, 15.6 yards per return, and a touchdown. So this guy who's got 2 career punt return touchdowns, averaged 14 yards per punt return in his career, had 2 full seasons before that knee injury where he was over 70 catches. He was over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. Like, just, it's all there, right? In terms of production, he can work zone defenses really well. He's still, like a lot of these guys, a work in progress versus man. He loses his groove a little bit when people get physical with him, but he's got really good hands. So the technique is there. Just got to strengthen up in an NFL weight room, right? Some of the surest hands in the draft with a 5.7% drop rate. One outlier season of 10 kind of skews those numbers. All the other seasons were closer to 3%, 4%. He gets out of his breaks with no hesitation. He played outfield in baseball in high school, so he's a natural ball tracker. He's got nice wiggle after the catch. He's a solid run blocker. When looking at his deep ball production, this is nutty, right? 2022, 17 of 32 for 656 yards, 38.6 per, 8 touchdowns. Really good deep ball production in 2022. In 2023, not so much, but again, we got to take into account the quarterbacks that some of these guys had to play with. 5 for 27 for 267. That's still 53.54 yards per catch on those 5 catches and a touchdown. I think he's best as a Z receiver, playing vertically on the perimeter. He's got good ball tracking. He's good as a run blocker. I think he's a role player. He can return punts for you. He can be a vertical boundary receiver for you, and he could develop into more over time. I think Torrey Horton, whether it's in the second round, trading up in the third round, in the fourth round, wherever he ends up falling, I think he would be a really nice high upside guy who can contribute right away for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I think I'm higher on him than the consensus. PFF has him as their 151st overall prospect. Dane Brugler is actually probably a little bit higher on Torrey Horton in this class comparatively. He has him as his 13th overall wide receiver, which is pretty solid. The combine was important for him, I thought, because coming off that injury, you wanted to show that you can do all the drills, all the workouts. He was good at the combine, ran the 4.41 40, which was faster than I thought he would run, to be honest. And obviously the knee injury kind of forced him to miss the end of the 2024 season. 7th highest receiving grade in 2023 of wide receivers with at least 75 targets. You mentioned the punt return ability, 26 career punt returns. I like his sideline awareness. Like you mentioned the baseball background and in the tracking. I think he has a really good awareness for the sideline and a really good footwork, especially around the sideline. So you're talking about some of these dropping the bucket balls that you might have to catch kind of down the sideline and make sure your feet are in bounds, like on some of these deeper balls. I think he's one of the best in this class as far as that's concerned. And that shouldn't be overlooked because the sideline awareness and knowing where your feet are is something that's like, I mean, these games, right, are decided by inches, as we know, and so that becomes really important. Really big fan of Torrey Horton. Incredible production throughout his college career, whether it was at Nevada, then Colorado State. Big fan of his. I'm rooting for him in the draft, no matter what. Of course, don't want him to go to a rival team, but he is a guy I've kind of singled out that I'm going to be rooting for on draft night, like his background, like his, his will and his tenacity to come back from that injury. And yeah, I'm a Torrey Horton fan.
Spoiler alert, the next guy we're going to talk about is my guy in our upcoming Thursday show, and that is Ty Felton out of the University of Maryland. Some physical comps for Ty Felton: Marvin Mims, Trey Palmer, Darius Slayton, I think is a really good one for him. He's 6'1", 183 pounds. He's got 30-inch arms. Ran a 4.37 40, which is 89th percentile with a 1.51 split, 80th percentile. He's a really explosive guy too. 39.5-inch vert, that is 89th percentile, and a 130 broad, which is 91st percentile. Ty Felton in 2023 was third team All Big Ten Conference. He led Maryland with 6 receiving touchdowns. He went 48 for 170, 723 yards, 15.1 per, started every game. Then he built off of that in 2024. He was third team AP All-American, first team All Big Ten, tied for fourth in the FBS with a school record, 96 receptions, led the team with 1,124 receiving yards, which is only 11.7 per, but he was targeted more times. He did more things. He diversified himself. 9 receiving touchdowns, started all 12 games, team captain. So this is a guy who's got 2 full seasons under his belt, has got the accolades. He's a true Z. I think he's thin, which is a concern, right? There's concerns with all of these guys, but he's a vertical guy who can also give you some yak. I really like watching him play. Reminds me a lot of Emmanuel Sanders. I know Emmanuel Sanders was a freak because even though he's probably the similar build as Emmanuel Sanders, as Ty Felton, Emmanuel Sanders had 34-inch arms, which is none of these guys have 34-inch arms. Ty Felton with his 30-inch arms, but you look at Ty Felton, he's a vertical threat. He's got good stride speed, good route cuts. He's a separator. He's got good body control. He's strong and dynamic with the ball in his hands. He can give you the yards after the catch. But at the end of the day, he's a good deep ball tracker. And he showed that with a few really good wow catches at the Senior Bowl. In 2024, he caught 8 of 28 deep balls for 240 yards, which is 30 yards per and 3 touchdowns. In 2023, he was 9 of 25 for 321, which is 35.7 per and 2 touchdowns. He did not have good quarterback play at Maryland. That is always something, again, you want to contextualize with these high number of incompletions, and it's just a lower percentage throw. Some concerns, his size versus press and in run blocking, but he's shown a willingness to work on those things, and he can obviously get stronger in the National Football League. We wanted Darius Slayton in free agency. We didn't get him, right? Or at least that kind of type. I think Ty Felton could be your plug and play Darius Slayton type as maybe a trade up in the 3rd round or at 62 or maybe in the 4th round. I like Ty Felton, and I think he marries perfectly into what we currently have at wide receiver.
Yeah, I think fit-wise, he's a premier fit, right, for what the Bills would need. I know we're both higher on him than consensus has him. I mean, PFF 148th overall. Dane Brugler only has him as his 19th overall receiver, 4th, 5th round grade on him. But the 4.37 40 at the combine, 4th best vertical at the combine, 9.19 RAS, 2nd most targets of any wide receiver in the class in 2024 with 143 targets and caught 96 balls. 4th most yak in the class for those with at least 85 targets. And he did play some slot as well, 30% of his time in the slot. Obviously, the slenderness is something that you think about, some of the drops issues maybe that he had. But as far as a fit, I don't think you can pencil in a better fit for what the Bills could use as a deep threat guy with speed than Ty Felton. And again, given the quarterback play he had to play with. So yeah, I'm a fan, certainly higher on him than consensus has him. And obviously you are, because he's going to be your no matter what guy for our Thursday show.
All right. Heading into our next tier now, these are sort of, again, just for the sake of the show, it's tier 1, tier 2. But these are guys that we expect to go into the 4th round and after, who maybe sort of fit what the Buffalo Bills are looking for. at wide receiver. In this next group, I've got guys like Dante Thornton, Isaac Tesla, Jalen Lane, and Andrew Armstrong. Let's start with Dante Thornton. My physical comp for Dante Thornton is not DK Metcalf, despite what some people want to say. It is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think it's a little bit more realistic. I try to be realistic. Like, there are some physical comps for these guys where it's like, well, this guy physically comps to Randy Moss. It's like, yeah, he does, but I'm not going to say that out loud. Physically, he does. A lot of guys physically comp like that, but they don't play like it. So I try to be not just aware of that when I'm making my comps, even though they're physical comps, not play style comps. But I'm going to say this guy's more closely associated to an MVS than he is a DK Metcalf. But 6'4", 205. So he's 95th percentile and then 60th percentile there. He's got a 79-inch wingspan, which is 82nd percentile, 32-inch arms, 57th percentile. He's got a 1.51 10-yard split, 80th percentile, 4.3 40-yard dash at that size, which is pretty nutty, 97th percentile. He's got a poor vertical, 20th percentile at 33 inches, but a 126 broad puts him in the 79th percentile. This guy is legitimately just a deep threat niche guy. I mean, just look at his career. In 2024, he played all 13 games at Tennessee, but only started 4. He led the team with 661 receiving yards on only 26 receptions with 6 receiving touchdowns. He led the FBS with 25.5 yards per reception. In 2023, he played in 9 games with only 3 starts. 13 catches, 224 yards, 17.2 yards per reception, and a touchdown. Missed the end of the season due to a lower leg injury. In 2021 and 2022, he had 5 starts at Oregon before he transferred to Tennessee. He averaged 21.5 and 19.5 yards per catches in those 2 seasons, respectively. The guy's played in some funky offenses at Tennessee and at Oregon, but he's explosive vertically. A career average of 21.9 yards per catch. He's got play strength. He's got good hand fighting ability to get past some of the more physical corners that he could face. He's got the talent to track the ball and adjust and win on those deep throws if they are contested. He's got true speed to make house calls when he catches the ball on the move. But at the end of the day, like I mentioned, the funky offenses he's been in, the guy's probably run 3 routes his entire career. Not a very diverse route tree. Obviously, NFL teams, all you got to do to really stop him is put a safety over the top, but that's the point, right? Sometimes you put him on the field just to move the safety back. Separation bursts from his route breaks are average. He lacks decisiveness and wiggle after the catch. Like, this dude's a true one-trick pony. You're not getting anything from him in the short to intermediate range of the field. In 2024 on deep balls, this is nuts. 7 of 10 for 376 yards. That's 53.7 per and 3 touchdowns. Like, it's wild, dude. It's that Tennessee offense is nuts. Like Jalen High at 2.0. His average depth of target in 2024 was 16.5 yards. He had 179 snaps wide, 55 in the slot. Like, really intriguing. But at the end of the day, a niche deep ball guy who probably also cannot contribute on special teams. So really tempting. Some people want to talk about him maybe going higher than he should. I think in the 4th round, sure. Before that, I'm not so comfortable.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where if the Bills do end up keeping a bunch of those day 3 picks that they have, right? There are worse start throws you can have than Dante Thornton. I mean, big hands, 9 and 5/8 hands, 4.3 40, had the 9.85 RAS. He was definitely a combine winner for sure, as far as like if you want to kind of talk about combine winners and losers. Our guy Daniel Harms, who used to be here at C1 and now is at TDN, says strengths are downfield speed, release package, hand usage, and separation nuances, which are all things that if you're looking at what the Bills need, that's certainly what they need. And his weaknesses are consistency, yak ability, and route tree. As you mentioned, he only probably ran a couple routes. But again, those weaknesses you can live with if you're the Buffalo Bills and you're looking for a downfield threat with the strengths that he has, hand usage, separation, downfield speed. Like, that's what you're looking for. So again, less versatility and less nuance to his route running than some of these other guys sort of in this category, but certainly fits the bill for a downfield threat with speed.
And Pete Nana does mention his 10% career drop rate, which is something I forgot to add to my notes. I added it for most other guys, but for some reason I forgot it with Thornton. So thank you for pointing that out. Not great. So that's one of the negatives you need to look at when you look at a guy like Thornton. The next guy up on our list here is Isaac Tesla. My physical comp for him, a faster Matt Collins. I really kind of struggled to find a comp for him because he's a big speed slot. So I went with a more juiced up Matt Collins. Isaac Tesla is 6'3", which is 87th percentile, 214 pounds, 79th percentile, 76-inch wingspan, 31-inch arms, 10-inch hands, big hands. Ran a 4.43 at the combine, which is 74th percentile, and had a 1.51 10-yard split, 80th percentile, 39-inch vert, 89th percentile, 129 broad, 88th percentile. So he's explosive, decent agility too. 6.85 cone, 68th percentile, 4.05 shuttle, 89th percentile, and he had 17 reps on the bench, which is 71st percentile. So like he's well above like the 75th percentile or the 70th percentile and almost
Pretty
everything
sure.
physically.
I'm pretty sure he had the highest RAS of any wide receiver
Yeah,
in this
just
class.
like nuts. Like he's a big riser after the Senior Bowl and the combine. In his 2 years at Arkansas, he only produced 883 yards and 5 touchdowns, but he had a huge community college career, right? So I think huge community college career. I don't know. Maybe that's, I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm struggling to find it. But here's the thing at Arkansas, and who knows? Maybe it's just Arkansas being dumb, right? Like almost exclusively a slot player, 68%. Like he's got good size to create big mismatch problems from the slot verts. So like his game, that's where like slot verts, slot fades. It's like all he did. But he's got play strength to sink into the zone and catch through contact, tracks the ball and attacks. And high points the ball down the field. He's pretty sure-handed, 0 career drops in his 2 years at Arkansas, frame and play strength to really be a good run blocker. The only question with Tesla is like, is he going to play on the boundary? Can he play on the boundary? We don't really know. So to me, a guy like Isaac Tesla is intriguing. I think he might get overdrafted because of these testing numbers. The Bills probably brought him in for a visit because they want to figure out whether this dude could play on the outside on the boundary or not. Because if he can't, I don't know.
He's a bit of an enigma in this class, right? Because you think about like the college production, he only had 62 combined catches across 23 and 24 at Arkansas, but went from 10.3 yards per catch to 19.5 yards per catch between 2023 and 2024. And it's just, you wonder about like what he could become in the NFL. And I think so I could see a guy like Tesla being very as far as the variance in the grading from different teams, I could see there being a fairly high variance on him, in opinion on him. And obviously it only just takes one team to kind of fall in love with him and kind of go through that process and figure out whether they want to take him like that. But again, he's a guy for me like Felton who could fit a need if he can play on the boundary. And while there's a bit of more uncertainty with a guy like him, there might be a higher ceiling with a guy like him, and you just don't know. He's a wild card for me. I'd have him below Felton, but I could see the Bills maybe saying, hey, you know, we've seen guys like Dante Thornton not really pan out in the NFL. If you want to compare him to Jalen Hyatt from a couple years ago, but like we don't know what Isaac Tesla could be potentially. Yeah. He could suck, right? We don't know, but when the deciding factor is kind of like the unknown higher ceiling in day 3, round 5, 6, whatever, then that could be
and he's got
in his favor.
He's got some fun special teams measurables to play with too. Like
Yeah.
None of his scouting reports really mentioned his special teams play and whether he played a lot of special teams. I'd have to dig into the PFF data for a snap count, which I did not do for him, which I should have, but I didn't. But he certainly has the traits and the build to be a special teamer like Matt Collins ended up being in his pro career. The next guy on my list here is a guy that does not fit the mold of the true Z that we've been talking about, but I think he's a really good player. The Buffalo Bills have zoomed with him. His physical comp is Curtis Samuel, and people are going to start throwing things at the screen that I said that because I think people are pretty salty with Curtis Samuel and the way he performed this past season with the Buffalo Bills. But at the end of the day, Curtis Samuel has been a pretty good receiver in the National Football League throughout his career. And if we're talking about guys who are 4th, 5th round draft picks, having a physical comp comparable to Curtis Samuel, not the worst thing for Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech. 5'9", 191 pounds, 77-inch wingspan, 31-inch arms, 4.34 40 with a 1.5 split. That's 94th and 88th percentile. A vert of 40, a broad of 132. That's 94th and 91st percentile. Good agility, 6.75 3 cone, 4.12 shuttle. That's 83rd and 75th percentile. I look at Jalen Lane and I he checks Yes, is he going to play on the boundary? Probably not. That's why he doesn't fit into this mold of that Z that we're looking for. He's probably a slot gadget type of guy. But we got to talk about the special teams here. We got to talk about the special teams here with Jalen Lane, because in 2021 at Middle Tennessee State, he was first team All Conference USA as a punt returner, and he was an honorable mention as a kick returner. He ranked second in the FBS that year with 15.5 yards per punt return. He had 19 on the season for 295 yards, 15 and a half per return and a touchdown. He also that year caught 42 balls for 466 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran the ball for 11 times for 93 yards, 8.5 yards per carry and a touchdown. And he returned 13 kicks for 285 yards, which is 21.9 per. So he did so much for Middle Tennessee State in his freshman year. Then his second year, he was honorable mention All Conference USA at Middle Tennessee as a wide receiver and second team as a return specialist. He led the team with 69 catches for 940 yards, 5 touchdowns. He returned 11 kicks for 254 yards, 23-yard average. He returned 18 punts for 152 yards, 8.5-yard average. Then he transfers to Virginia Tech. He pretty much was a minimal kick and punt returner in 2023, but he led the team with 41 catches for 538 yards, 13.1 per and 6 touchdowns. And then in 2024, they sort of unleashed him a little bit again. He was third team All ACC return specialist. He only returned 1 kick that year, but he had 24 punt returns for 245 yards, which is 10.2 per, and a touchdown. He also led the team with 38 catches for 466 yards and 2 touchdowns, and ran the ball 18 times for 116 yards, 6.54 yards per, and 2 touchdowns. So like just littered through his production profile is kick returns, punt returns, receiving, rushing. Like the guy can do it all. 4.34 in the 40, 11 in the broad, 6.75 in the 3-cone. Here's why he's on my list, even though he doesn't fit the mold. No wide receiver draft in the last decade has done that with those 3 things that I just listed. 4.34 in the 40, 11-inch in the broad, 6.75 in the 3-cone. The only guys who came close, Jamar Chase, Christian Watson, Kadarius Toney. Those are the only guys who came close in the last 10 years. He's explosive. He separates. He's got stop-start ability. He can control that speed like we talked about. People are going to knock him for his size. F it. I don't care. Like, he was underutilized at Virginia Tech. He was an underneath guy. He shined in his few opportunities where he got a chance to go down the field. Is he going to be pigeonholed in the NFL as a speed slot with gadget potential? Sure. But he's going to be a nightmare in motion. Teams are going to have to think about him. If, as Curtis Samuel ages out or maybe becomes a cap casualty after this season, he can slide in there. He can help you on special teams right away. As a deep ball receiver, he was 2 for 8 this year. Again, atrocious quarterback play at places like Virginia Tech for 91 yards, which is 45.5 per reception and 2 touchdowns. So he showed that he can be a deep threat too. Jalen Lane could just be too good to pass up in round 4, even if he doesn't exactly fit a need.
I really like Jalen Lane. You're talking about a guy with a ton of experience across those 2 programs, 54 total games played, combined kick and punt returns in his career. He has over 100 combined kick and punt returns. Now, obviously, like, he kind of stopped doing the kick return side of things when he went to Virginia Tech, but double-digit kick returns in all of his years at Middle Tennessee State. And then you mentioned the 24 punt returns at Virginia Tech in 2024. So if you want to basically solve your return problem, if you want to consider it a problem, it's not necessarily a problem, but if you want to have sort of that situation like you had with Andre Roberts a couple years ago, where you have one guy that does your kick returns and punt returns, like Jalen Lane, that's the guy for you. Only Lane and Matthew Golden were the wide receivers under 6 feet tall with over 9.5-inch hands at the combine. Very good showing at the combine. Ran the sub 4.4 as you mentioned, and had a really good athletic testing profile with a 9.56 RAS. So all the things you mentioned and more are the reasons why I'm still quite intrigued by a guy like Jalen Lane, and just the special teams ability alone certainly gives me some intrigue. I mean, Dane Brugler has him as a 4th-round pick, his 15th overall wide receiver, shot up PFF's rankings between February and now, went from their 300th overall prospect back in February, on February 2nd, to now their 164th overall prospect. So jumped 136 spots in their rankings since February.
RJ Melville and Noah Sheldon are having a great conversation in the comment section. Essentially, they're the crux of their conversation, as Noah says, is screw special teams. McDermott needs to get rid of his special teams BS. RJ Melville comes in and says 100% agree. You should never draft for special teams only. Your special teams coordinator should be good enough to develop an average special teams core. I don't disagree with that sentiment. People have heard me rant and rave about how pissed I was that we passed on Xavier Hutchinson and Puka Nacua and Trey Palmer for Justin Shorter. Like in real time, I was having issues with that pick. I thought the Buffalo Bills picked the guy because they thought he could play special teams over his ability as a wide receiver. That's a conversation to have. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, special teams is a part of the game. This Buffalo Bills team has mentioned how important fixing the special teams unit is and the new emphasis because of the new touchback rule. So special teams does play a role. Now, I agree. Like if we're comparing, if there's a receiver that I think is just this much better as a wide receiver than the other guy, figure it out. Draft the guy who's a much better wide receiver. But these guys are good receivers or show good potential. And at the same time, also have this other element to their game. So it's worth mentioning this other element that they have to their game. Next guy up here, and these next couple of guys in this next tier, right? These are guys that could go round 4, maybe round 5. Who knows? Maybe they slipped to round 6 or 7. But these are the guys that the Buffalo Bills are probably going to be pursuing later on in the draft. I'm going to start with Andrew Armstrong out of Arkansas. My physical comp for him is, I don't know if you remember this receiver, a little throwback here. Tyrell Williams, the San Diego Charger, right? Big body, downfield guy, right? 6'3", 202 for Andrew Armstrong, 79-inch wingspan, 32-inch arms, almost 10-inch hands. So he's got some good size, a good size profile. 4'5", 140, which is only 50th percentile, but a 1.53 split, which is 64th. A decent 74th percentile vert, 68th percentile broad. Not the greatest agility in the world with a 46th percentile 3-cone and a 61st percentile 20-yard shuttle. But this guy had 4 years of experience at East Texas A&M. He lost 2 seasons to start his career due to his redshirt and COVID. But then he transferred to Arkansas, where in 2023, he led the team with 56 catches for 764 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then last year at Arkansas, he was second team All-SEC, led the team with 78 receptions for over 1,000 yards, 14.6 per, but only 1 touchdown. This is a pure boundary guy. Not a lot of slot reps. He's more of an X than a Z, but for the Bills' purposes, he can play the Z. Good explosion testing. He hits his top speed quickly, so he's got that deep play potential, despite the fact that the 40 is a little maybe slower than some of these other guys that we're talking about. In 2024 on deep balls, he was 7 for 22 for 196 yards, which is 28 yards per catch and a touchdown. In 2023, he was 3 for 15 for 122, which is 40.7 yards per catch and a touchdown. 12th highest player in yards per route run in this class, 18 of 29 on contested targets, and 4th in only 4 drops in 118 targets. Long frame, big hands, boxes out, creates space for himself. Good hands catcher, above average catch radius, good at jump balls, uses his size well in run blocking. Probably not the top of my list here, but the Buffalo Bills have met with Andrew Armstrong, so there's clearly an interest there. And even though the 40 doesn't match some of the other guys, he's got that good explosion and that initial first step.
Yeah, this is a guy I think where you're going to see a lot of variance too. I mean, Dane Brugler has him graded as a priority free agent, 38th overall receiver for him. But he has shot up PFF's rankings. He wasn't even in their top 300 back in February. Now is 179th. One of only 18 wide receivers in the class with 1,000 receiving yards in 2024, third highest receiving grade of draft eligible receivers with at least 85 targets per PFF's grading, and top 10 in both contested catch target and contested catch percentage of all draft eligible wide receivers with at least 85 targets, and has the 8.56 RAS, so pretty decent athlete. The 4.5 140 isn't a huge surprise. Those are kind of like Gabe Davis range speed, but big hands, like you said, in the big frame at 6'3", 202. So certainly a guy I'd have my eye on later in the draft, and certainly if he becomes undrafted, I would certainly have him on speed dial. But with the Bills, with all those picks, if they keep them, again, use one of those picks on this guy, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, Charles G coming in and says, what do y'all think of Elijah Badger? We're going to get to Elijah Badger in a moment. Some names coming up here that we're going to talk about over the next couple of minutes: Keandre Lambert-Smith, Ricky White, Elijah Badgers, Shamir Dyke, Arian Smith, and Dominic Lovett. Just going in order of my show notes here. So we got Keandre Lambert-Smith next. My physical comp for him is Nelson Aguilar, 6 foot, 190 pounds, 78 inch wingspan, 32 inch arms, 153 10-yard split, 4.37 40, which is 89th percentile. So that's good for him. 34 inch vertical, 36 percentile, not so great. To me, you look at his production profile, role player for 3 years at Penn State, then in 2023 breaks out a little bit. Honorable mention, all Big Ten Conference, led the team with 53 receptions for 673 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. Then transfers to Auburn, second team All SEC, led the team with 50 catches, 981 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. He ranked 9th in the FBS with 19.6 yards per reception, which is probably what piqued the interest of the Buffalo Bills and why they have been in contact with him in this pre-draft process. Doesn't appear to have much special teams value. Never going to be a contested catch or catch point guy. Size profile isn't great, but he's an adequate run blocker. He's definitely developing a route tree, but he should have the speed to be able to threaten guys earlier in his career in a limited role while he does develop more things as a route runner. Neither situation that he was in was exactly QBU. So to me, not my first, not one of my first 10 or 15 choices, but as we get into like the 6th round or so, a guy like Keandre Lambert-Smith makes sense if the board falls certain ways in the rounds previous.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I'm higher on him than consensus as well. Had the biggest hands of any wide receiver, I should say, at the combine at 10.5 inches. Nailed his 40 time, obviously, with the 4.37. I think that was the expectation, right? Is that's what he needs to be doing at the next level. Highest yards per reception, 19.6 of all draft eligible wide receivers with at least 75 targets. And you mentioned the transfer. He kind of blossomed at Auburn after spending his first years at Penn State and kind of had that good season in 2024. I think a solid day 3 option for the Bills, right here, and played out wide on 85% of his snaps in 2024. So he's what you could use in this office, certainly. And yes, he's not going to bring a ton of value on special teams, but on offense as a receiver in a need that you have, certainly could fit what they need.
Next guy on my list here is one of my honorable mention, my guys in this draft, and that's Ricky White out of UNLV. My physical comp for him, I think you might like this one. Another one kicking it a little old school here. Keelan Cole is my physical comp for Ricky White. 6'1", 184, 76-inch wingspan, 4.61 40 at the combine with a 1.55 split. He fixed that at his pro day, though, running a 4.5, which I think more so matches his play speed. He started his career at Michigan State, and he had a really big game his freshman year against Michigan, set a Michigan State freshman record with 8 catches for 196 yards and a touchdown. Played in 7 games that season as a reserve, missed some games due to injury. He redshirted his next year for reasons unknown and then hit the portal, landing eventually at UNLV. In 2022, he led the team with 51 catches for 619 yards and 4 touchdowns starting every game. In 2023, he was 3rd team AP All-American, not just All Mountain West, but All-American. He was a first team All Mountain West Conference player in 2023. Led UNLV with 88 catches, 8 touchdowns, ranked 3rd in the FBS with the school record, 1,400 plus yards, 16.9 per. Again, started all 13 games and was named a captain mid-season. Then last year, he was Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Year, first team All Mountain West Conference, team captain, led the team with 79 catches for over 1,000 yards, 13.2 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. Led the FBS with 4 blocked punts and had 3 punt returns for 90 yards, which is 30 yards per punt return, which is pretty darn good, and a touchdown. He's got a smaller frame. He needs to add some functional strength. He's never going to be a contested catch guy, but he's a willing blocker who, when he adds some more strength, will be better in that area. He gets vertical. He wins vertical. He's got great ball tracking ability. In 2024, he was 9 of 27 on deep balls for 282 yards, 31.3 yards per with 3 touchdowns. The previous season, he was 11 for 26 for 570 for 51.8 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns. To me, the selling point for Ricky White is he has a niche, deep threat with 4-phase special team ability. Like, that's a perfect wide receiver number 5, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he can come in, play special teams right away. He had incredible production, really, his last 2 years at UNLV, 2023, 88 catches for 1,483 and 8 touchdowns. Followed that up with a good 2024, 79 for over 1,011 TDs. 4 punt returns in 2024, including one for a touchdown. So that helps as well. Only one of 6 draft eligible wide receivers with 1,000 yards and 10 plus receiving TDs in 2024. So I like Ricky White a lot. He's kind of been sort of on my radar throughout the entire process. Even as I've gone through other names, I kind of come back to him. There's 7 drops in 2024. Maybe that's a concern, but they had quarterback changes as well at UNLV when Sluka left, and then Malik Williams came in, I believe, in 2024. So he had to go through his own changes as well at UNLV and still put up numbers. So more power to Ricky White. I like him.
Next guy up is Elijah Badger, a guy I am pretty familiar with because he used to play at Arizona State before transferring to Florida. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, very, very high in Elijah Badger. He sort of stylistically and physically comped him to Stephon Diggs. I'm not willing to go that far with middle round prospects, right? Every time I see a middle round prospect that's around 6 foot and around 200 pounds, that's pretty decently quick, I always just comp them to Nelson Aguilar. So my physical comp here is Nelson Aguilar, but Elijah Badger is 6'1", 200 pounds. He's got a 78-inch wingspan, which is really good, 32-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. He ran a 4.43 40, which is 74th percentile, a 1.53 split, which is 64th percentile. Didn't do any explosion testing, at least none that I recorded or were recorded on Mock Draftable. His production profile is great. In 2022 at Arizona State, honorable mention, all Pac-12 conference, led the team with 70 catches for 866 yards, 12.4 yards per receptions, and 7 touchdowns. Sorry, my daughter is saying goodnight to me here. In 2023 at Arizona State, he was honorable mention, all Pac-12 again, led the team with 65 catches for 713 yards and 3 touchdowns. But that season, he also ranked 6th in the FBS with 28.9 yards per kick return with 20 for 578. And he chipped in 11 for 51 with 4.6 yards per carry and a touchdown on the ground. And then at Florida, he led the team with 806 receiving yards, 39 receptions, 4 receiving touchdowns, ranked 2nd in the FBS with 20.7 yards per reception, minimum 30 receptions. So you got some special teams value. You have the ability to run the football. So he's a yak type of guy. He has a pretty decent receiving profile despite the myriad of quarterbacks he's had to play for over the course of his career. He's very athletic. Like, the game just comes naturally to him. Like, he gets the ball in his hands and he just makes plays. Slippery with the ball in his hands. He's a good yak, good contact balance guy. You can tell that's why people use him as a returner and in the run game. He's got the speed to threaten deep. Again, like, why isn't he a bigger name? A lot of that probably has to do with his quarterback play over the course of his career. Only player in this class with over 10 contested targets and 0 drops. 3rd in yards per reception versus man, behind only Trey Harris and Jalen Royals. Not a route running technician, but room to grow there. A thinner frame, not really all that successful as a blocker, but this is a boundary vertical guy with special teams ability who can grow into more. So again, I think he just checks a lot of the boxes of what the Buffalo Bills are looking for in a receiver in this draft.
Yeah, checks a ton of boxes. Only 8 drops in his career. Only 2 drops in 2023 at Arizona State when he had 99 targets. 0 drops in 2024 for him. A very healthy increase in his average depth of target once he transferred to Florida as well. It was hovering around kind of that under 10 range actually at Arizona State. Jumped that up to 17.3 average depth of target in 2024 at Florida. So you mentioned the contested catch, no drops on that. Caught 11 of 16 contested catch targets in 2024 at Florida. So, and you mentioned the special teams ability again with him. So almost 600 kick return yards in 2023. He can come in and be a kick returner for you.
Mm-hmm.
2023 really was the year for him doing that, but still over 20 career kick returns in his career in college. He can certainly add to the room there. So I'm a fan.
Next guy is Elijah Badger's teammate at Florida, and that's Shmir Dyke. Here is a physical comp for him. Another throwback here. Andre Caldwell. Remember Andre Caldwell?
You're loving the throwbacks. Yeah.
The throwbacks. ChatGPT did wonders for me today. I was like, here's the height. Because every time you go into Mock Draftable, they're comparing them to other draft prospects or players who are like first round picks. I'm like, no, I don't need this. Like, I need to find me like some middle of the road receiver who had a nice career. Let's go find a physical comp that can also maybe be a a career arc comp, right? And so I went into ChatGPT today and I was like, here's Shamir Dykes. I did this for a couple of guys. I'm like, what is their height? Here's their height. Here's their weight. Here's their 40 time. Give me 10 players who have played in the National Football League with similar, height, weight, speed, and did a pretty decent job for a while of giving me names, but then it just started regurgitating the same names over and over and over again. But Andre Caldwell is what came up here for Shamir Dyke. 6 foot, 196 pounds, 76-inch wing, 32-inch arms, 4.3, 440 with a 1.51 split. Decent vertical, decent broad, 82nd and 85th percentile, decent agility, 74th percentile 3-cone, not so much the shuttle, only 38th percentile. But when you look at Dyke, 2020, 2021, he was a part-time player and kick returner at Wisconsin. Then in 2022, he kind of blew up at Wisconsin, led the team with 47 catches for 689 yards, 6 touchdowns. He also contributed 32 rushing yards and a touchdown. He also contributed 5 kick returns for 146 yards, which is almost a 30-yard average. In 2023 at Wisconsin, started 11 games, had 19 catches for 328 yards, 17.3 yards per and a touchdown. He also contributed 11 for 249, 22.6 average as a kick returner. And then in 2024 at Florida, where he transferred and all receivers go to die, apparently Ricky Pearsall, Elijah Badger, Shamir Dyke, led the team with 42 catches, 783 yards, 18.6 yards per reception. He's a good blocker. He's a thick dude, legit speed, solid route runner. He's got slot boundary versatility. He's got special teams ability, as I mentioned. He had a big Hula Bowl week, which turned into a Senior Bowl invite, which turned into a Combine invite. So he has just worked himself through this process to get himself on draft boards. You got to respect that. He's got deep speed, 18.6 yards per reception. 44% of his catches came on deep crossers. That was a stat that Brett Coleman pointed out. In 2024, he was 10 of 18 on deep passes for 322 yards for a 32.2 per yard average and a touchdown. Vertical threat kick returner, could develop into more, just check so many boxes. 6th, 7th round, a guy like Shamir Dyke, I think, is a good option for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good option. He obviously hit the numbers he needed to at the combine, running that 4.3, 440. Pretty good size, right? 6 feet, almost 200 pounds. You mentioned the transfer to Florida after spending his first years at Wisconsin. I like that he has experience as both a kick returner and a punt returner. Went from really mainly playing the slot at Wisconsin to moving back sort of out to the boundary at Florida, 60-40 career slot boundary splits, and caught 7 of 12 contested catches in 2024. Not a huge touchdown maker, through only 3 TDs in his past 2 seasons. So some of those deep balls are not necessarily translating to touchdowns, but yeah, you could do worse than a guy like that in like the 6th, 7th round, or even as a priority free agent, I would say. I think he's draftable. I certainly think he's draftable. But I could see him slipping, kind of into the late day 3 range.
Last name I got on my list is a guy the Buffalo Bills have been in contact with a couple of times. I think it's a 30 visit and a Zoom meeting. And that is Arian Smith out of the University of Georgia. Physical comp, another throwback here. Donnie Avery. Remember Donnie Avery? 6 foot, 179 for Arian Smith. So not a big dude. 77-inch wingspan. 4.3, 640 though with a 1.51 split. Good vertical number, good broad number, good 3-cone, good 20-yard shuttle. Started to run a little bit low on my show notes. So I don't have a production profile for Arian Smith. I know his drop rate isn't great. I know his career production isn't great. But there was an article from 3013. I just want to read this excerpt from this article that I was reading. And I think it probably tells you why teams are interested in Arian Smith. Smith started his college career playing football and started his career playing football at running back. He was an All-American sprinter before that, but was not always consistent on the football field. He finally developed into the team's deep threat in 2024. He led the team in receiving yards, and his 15 catches of 20 or more yards more than doubled the next highest Georgia receiver. His straight line speed was never a question. He ran a 4.39, but he also recorded the fastest top speed among receivers who did the agility drills in the short shuttle at a 14.8 miles per hour. And with 14, which was the next closest was Shamir Dyke, and 16.22 miles per hour in the 3-cone. So just a really fast dude. And you put up on the screen here.
Yeah, but we got to take it.
It's a great job, right?
but only 20 targets in 2023, and 72 targets in 2024. So that was was increased, but like, you know, he is what he is in a type of way, right? Like he's that's what he is. So you kind of have to live with it, right? And see if you can get some technique maybe out of it and some coaching.
Yeah, there's just a couple other receivers on my list. I'm not going to go into them. Dominic Lovett, another guy from Georgia, speed slot. Jimmy Horn Jr., pretty much everything I said about Jalen Lane, I would really like Jimmy Horn Jr. at some point, round 4 through 7. He's another guy I'd make an exception for. 5'8", 175 pounds, right? But he runs that 4.46 40, 154, 10-yard split. He kind of reminds me of Demario Douglas, who I really liked a couple of years ago. So Jimmy Horn Jr., I'm just really high on. The Buffalo Bills had a Zoom meeting, I think, with Landon Parker, who's a physical freak type of receiver out of Troy as well. So there's a couple other receivers late. Any other names stick out to you? Dominic Lovett, like I said, speed slot, but any other names stick out to you?
I mean, Juice Wells, we can talk about him maybe as an option, but he didn't really run. He's not really going to run in the Bills offense, I think. He didn't have a great time at the combine, 4.58. I like him as a prospect, but probably not going to fit what the Bills need. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith was the main guy, I think, in this tier that I was kind of intrigued by. So, no, I think we covered it.
All right. Up next is just a quick look at the running back position in the 2024 NFL draft. The Buffalo Bills could obviously, with James Cook going into a contract year and all those issues surrounding James Cook, could be looking to add a running back in this draft. They have some Darrington Evans and they have Frank Gore Jr. as well for depth. They don't need to add a running back. It's a deep class. Guys will drop late. There might be a point in this draft where the value is just too high. People will question being able to keep a fourth running back on the team, but if the guy has special teams value, that'll help their case as well. Something that, again, we got to talk about in terms of roster construction. To me, though, Dave, like, there are plenty of running backs in this draft that I like, but I'm like, skill set kind of similar to Ray Davis. If we're going to take a guy like Brashard Smith out of SMU, former wide receiver, the guys with the breakaway speed, those are the guys I think that stick out to me a little bit. A guy that they might be grooming to replace James Cook a year from now. What are your thoughts on what the Bills could try to add to the room? Or is it just a guy sticking out? It doesn't matter what type of running back they are. They're just sticking out. It's the 5th round. It's the 6th round. Got to take them.
I think so. For me, we talk about adding speed at wide receiver. I just think generally, like, yes, we have James Cook, and he is fast, and so I'm not going to try to take anything away from him. But like, I think we want speed anywhere we can get it on this offense. So if I'm looking at some of these running backs in the class, I'm going to look first and foremost at the guys that do have some of that speed. So, guys like Tootin. Obviously, guys like Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State is interesting to me. Guys like that. There are a lot of good running backs in this class. Like Devin Neal, I really like from Kansas, but like I don't know, like, is that a wasted pick for the Buffalo Bills? I don't necessarily say it is, but also I think for me where I am right now, add speed at running back. Some people may disagree and say, hey, we need to add more size at running back. But I think Ray Davis kind of effectively can kind of play that role a bit. But there are some other guys that could be of interest, some bigger guys like we mentioned in some of our other shows. Like we're going to talk about it, like, maybe some of these guys pop up in our no matter what lists. But, Judkins is a name that comes to mind. Damian Martinez from Miami. If you're looking at bigger guys, they're interesting guys to me. I think both of those guys are good players. But for me, where my heart's at right now is like I just want to add speed to this offense. So that's kind of where I've been focusing on with the running backs.
Yeah, I mean, Bashal too, and he's got that kick returning ability too. He's so tempting. I think he's rising up draft boards. But he's got fumbling issues. So you got that to deal with a guy like Tootin. Jaden Blue, he's a speedster. Like just absolute game-changing speed. Brashard Smith, former wide receiver. I like a lot of aspects of his game. I think RJ Harvey is tempting. I think Trevor Etienne is kind of like some of an all-purpose back that kind of goes under the radar who could slide because of the way this draft is structured.
I like Marcus Yarns too. He had a nice combine from small school.
Your guy, Jaquez Hunter, has got some good speed.
I like Jaquez Hunter.
I think the really popular sentiment is trade James Cook and then use that draft pick to draft Travion Henderson. Like that's the conversation a lot of people in Bills Mafia like to have. Before we re-signed before we re-signed Ty Johnson, to me, it was all about like the pass blockers in this class. Who are the pass blockers? Who are the pass blockers? And I really liked the idea of LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. But LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse didn't have a single run of over 15 yards this past season. So he doesn't really fit the explosion profile that you look for. Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, he's a good pass blocker if that's what the Buffalo Bills are interested in. So there are so many good running backs in this class. I don't want to see the Buffalo Bills take anything before the fourth round. I mean, if there's someone sticking out in the fourth round, it's just like, got to do it. Just do it. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of some of the names, like, cause it's such a deep class, right? Like,
I think it comes.
Damian Martinez could be so tempting if he's there in the fourth round. Like, it's just such a deep class. I don't know. Like,
I think it comes down to. I think it comes down to how many of these picks do the Bills keep, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's what it comes down to. If they keep all these day 3 picks, then sure, take one of these guys. But if you're using that as ammo to move up, then running back obviously becomes less of a priority. James Cook's gonna be here in 2025. You got Ty Johnson back in the mix. You got Ray Davis. It's like it's not a pressing need for 2025. Yes, it's a good class. So if you can find somewhere to take one, great. But like, you don't have to force it.
As much as the Bills don't want to pay James Cook, clearly, I can't envision a world where they trade him. I just can't. Like,
I'm with you.
He's too good. He's too good. You're in this window. You need this running game to be explosive to complement this passing game because there is no alpha wide receiver. You know, I like Ray Davis as a complimentary back. I like Ty Johnson as a complimentary back. I like the nice little rotation we have that allows James Cook to stay fresh. But if James Cook were to leave this football team and were to replace him with a rookie, I'd have a lot more questions about this offense. So to me, I want to live in my nice little safe bubble and just get one more year out of James Cook. All right. Before we close out the show here, some of our final thoughts. All right, Dave, before we head out of here this evening, any final thoughts?
No, we got a busy week coming up. Obviously, the draft is just over a week away now at this point. I'll be on with Joe DeRosa tomorrow on Under Review. We're going to be doing a mock draft on his show. And then obviously we've got our No Matter What show that we're going to pre-record and release on Thursday. So a week before the draft. So busy week ahead for us. And we will see what happens.
Yeah, so just a couple of show notes here. Thursday, we'll have a pre-recorded show, same time that we normally air, 9 p.m. I don't know, maybe we'll release it a little bit later. Whatever AI tells me the best time to release a show on a Thursday night is, I'll probably do it. So probably sometime between 6 and 9 p.m. So we'll have our No Matter What show where Dave and I will go through the prospect that has caught our heart the most at each of the major position groups. Obviously, we're going to be excluding offensive line and quarterback, but I think we're going to do all the other position groups, including running back, tight end, linebacker, safety, etc. So we'll get to talk about a couple of prospects that maybe we haven't had a chance to talk about in this pre-draft process. That's on tap for Thursday. And then obviously we're in the final stages here. So Monday, we're going to do a big mega show. We're going to talk about like scenarios. We're going to talk about like trading up versus trading down. We're going to talk about options in every round and comparing players across position groups. So we've talked about position groups in isolation. Now it's time to compare guys by round, like compare the edge rushers, the defensive tackles, the safeties, the corners, the receivers in the first round and in the second round, in the third round, the fourth round, etc. So that'll be our show on Monday to prepare us for total and complete live coverage, coast to coast, wire to wire in the 2025 NFL draft here at Cover One. We've got night 1. We'll be with Pro Anth on night 2. Joe DeRosa's got day 3, and we might be sneaking in there as well. But Cover One has you covered for the 2025 NFL draft. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. There are so many ways you can support this show, and we would really appreciate any one of those ways. Number 1 is just quite easy, smashing that like button. Number 2, after this show is over, leaving a comment in the comment section really helps drive the algorithm. And over the course of the week, we try to get into the comments once the show is on demand and leave a comment to your comments. So whether your comment is a criticism or a take or a compliment or just a go Bills, we always try to respond. And the last thing you can do is hit that share button. Word of mouth means a lot to us. So if you click that share button and you text family, friends, you share on social media, tell people how much you enjoy this show and how much you think they might enjoy the show. And then they tune in and they genuinely and authentically enjoy it. And they start becoming regular viewers. That's the way we want to grow the show. And that's the way we want to add viewers to this thing. So you guys do a great job of that. We are so appreciative to you. We are so appreciative of the comments you have every week. You drive this show. It's going to be a little weird, Dave, here when we record the next 15 minutes or so, not having any comments in the comments section. Show might be a little bit quicker. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
I always have to make sure I'm ready before I say go Bills because I'm never quite ready.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!